So maybe you just saw Maxine and thought to yourself, hey, you know what? I want to check out some other serial killer films. Well, here's 5 that I think you're gonna like. So you like the darker serial killer stuff, huh? Well, good thing I've been watching movies for decades and have a huge collection, because I can pick out a few serial killer movies that you may have never heard of that you should check out. First up, we have The Call. Yeah, it's a Netflix movie that came out just recently that pretty much nobody was talking about. It was one of my favorite films that year, and it came out in 2020. The Call is a Korean horror film that deals with a serial killer and also somewhat of a time-shifting thing going on here. One girl in the future is talking to a girl in the past, and the way they do it? A telephone. A 28-year-old girl from the future named Seo Yeon takes a trip to the countryside to visit her hospitalized mother. She loses her phone on the train and decides that she's going to look for another phone in her mom's house, and she can't find anything till she finds this secret basement with a phone and an old diary from another girl who's 28 years old that's 20 years in the past. She reads the diary, and what she finds out is that there is a girl in 1999 who had a mother that was a shaman who is really cruel to her because she thinks she's going to be a serial killer if she gets out of the house. When one day that phone rings, and it's that 28-year-old girl from 1999. The little girl from the past tells her dad died, and she thinks to herself, well, I'm in the future, maybe I can save your dad. And when she goes to start looking into this, her whole world starts unraveling, and she gets tangled up in the serial killer's web. Is it her? Is it somebody else? What is going on? There's a connection between the two of them that you sort of explore, so it gets really embroiled with some really heavy tension, some really messed up things that she hears over the phone, and just a lot of really interesting story development. This is a really fantastic movie that nobody ever talks about if you like a twist with your serial killer films. Number 2 is Summer of '84 that came out in 2018. I saw this movie and instantly bought it because I wanted to have it on Blu-ray because I liked it so much. Now, there was another movie that came out after it called The Clove Hitch Killer, which reminded me very similar of this sort of similar plot, but I honestly prefer The Summer of '84 over it. But moving forward, the story is about a bunch of kids in the past, in the 80s, kind of like a team of kids that you would see in something like It or Stand By Me. Kind of has that vibe about it that Stephen King wrote. After suspecting that their neighborhood police officer is a serial killer, a group of teenage kids spend their entire summer spying on him, gathering evidence. But as they start to get a little bit closer to the truth, things get extremely dangerous and even deadly. There's a lot of moments in the movie where they are doing something and get caught in the act of and try to get out of. So that just adds this level of tension. It's a lot of fun in the beginning because, you know, everything's happening. But as the movie progresses, the movie gets darker and darker, and their world gets smaller and smaller. And this just adds to the whole bang that this movie provides. Now, a lot of people, I will admit, did not like the ending of this movie because it's not a happy-go-lucky feeling movie. And some things that happen in it are pretty, they're messed up. And this is also on Shudder right now, so if you want to check it out, you can. I highly recommend it. I think it's a fantastic film. It's very straightforward, but everything that happens in the film really leads up to some crazy stuff. Up next, we've got Manhunter from 1986. Yes, this is the movie that was before Silence of the Lambs. And yes, both of those movies are based off the Red Dragon novel. But this one took place long before we got to see the Hannibal Lecter that we've seen in iterations of other films. And a lot of people haven't seen this movie, and they really should, because it's extremely good. It's extremely stylish. The music is done by Tangerine Dream, which just is amazing to listen to. Fantastic performances by Brian Cox, who plays Hannibal Lecter. Tom Noonan, who is also in this movie and is creepy as hell. He's the guy that played Frankenstein in Monster Squad. Yeah, that guy. Well, he's pretty messed up in this one. We got a young Stephen Lang in this movie, and William Peterson, who is the main role in this movie, who plays Will Graham in the film. It's a different taste than Silence of the Lambs, but I think you'll enjoy it. And this movie was directed by Michael Mann, by the way. He's the guy that did Heat, Ali, Last of the Mohicans, The Keep. It's essentially a little bit more along the lines of the Hannibal TV show and the book in particular, because it follows a former FBI profiler by the name of Will Graham, and he returns to service to pursue a deranged serial killer that they just can't get, dubbed the Tooth Fairy. And of course, who does he get help from? Hannibal Lecter. And man, is this a stylish, weird, interesting film. And this is just a movie that is super underrated in my opinion, and I think you should check it out. Up next, we have I Saw the Devil, which is a Korean horror film that has really made some waves over the years and kind of picked up some steam and become a really popular cult Korean horror film. You can watch it on Hulu or Disney, or you can rent it if you want. It's essentially about a secret agent who exacts revenge on a serial killer through a series of captures and releases because of one of his loved ones who is captured by this serial killer. This guy is hunting this guy down, and they are playing cat and mouse with each other the entire time this movie is going on. The whole movie kicks off with this woman who's in a car, and she is being hunted by the serial killer. And what happens after that and all the places that this movie goes to will have you on the edge of your seat as to what happens. And it makes you also kind of wonder, what would you do in that situation if one of your loved ones was gone and everything you cared about was gone? Would you go as far as a serial killer and try to hurt that serial killer? Or would you just turn him into the police? What would you do? This guy goes to great lengths to mess with the serial killer, and it makes it a completely different film than I've really ever seen. It's actually really dark and really good. I Saw the Devil is by director Kim Ji-woon, who actually did A Tale of Two Sisters, which is also a pretty decent horror movie if you ever want to check that one out too. But I highly recommend this. This is totally underrated in a lot of ways, and a lot of people are just now catching up to seeing this film, and you should too. Last but certainly not least, and this one may be a little bit more on the popular side of serial killer movies, but there's a way to do serial killers right, and there's a way to do it wrong. And personally, I think this one is one of the more weird, kind of legit, scary ways to look at a serial killer because of the way that this serial killer is kind of documented. You're following the serial killer as he goes on this like sort of rampage of how he goes after people and all the meticulous things that he does to cover up his crimes. And that movie is The House That Jack Built. And man, is not only dark and messed up, it is also very funny at times, which I know sounds bad, but it's got some dark humor in there that it is a little absurd. But then where this movie goes afterwards is insane. Essentially, it's about this guy who's a failed architect and a vicious sociopath named Jack, and he recounts his sort of elaborately orchestrated murders as he's sort of gone through them. He defines his life's work as a serial killer in the Pacific Northwest. And this is by director Lars von Trier, who has done a lot of really wild films like Antichrist, Dancer in the Dark, the Kingdom TV series, which was all the rage back in the day, and they even brought it back in 2022. Lars von Trier is a kind of an auteur, and so this movie goes into some places that are a little crazy, a little weird for some people, but I think it's actually pretty fantastic. It's all sort of metaphorical, whether you agree with the concept or not. You will have never seen a movie like this or a serial killer go through all the meticulous steps like this one either. Which, by the way, if you ever want to check out my other video from years ago that I did sort of a kind of a breakdown of all the different things that were in the movie that kind of represent certain things that were going on at the time, and very much what Lars von Trier was really kind of going after. This was just some of my own theories. You can check the link out above, or you can follow it down below, or at the end of this video, it'll show you. Matt Dillon plays the character of the serial killer, and he does a really good job. We got Bruno Ganz and even Uma Thurman who are in this film. There are some moments in the film that are a little much for some people, but I urge you to push through. I don't think it's as bad as all of that. I mean, he is a serial killer after all. One scene in the movie that kind of made me go, that's a little bit much. Overall, he gets his comeuppance, and it's weird how this movie makes you feel, whether you should be rooting for him or not. I like movies that challenge the viewer in perspectives like that. It really kind of puts you in a space that is uncomfortable at times, and you don't want to necessarily be in that situation. And Lars von Trier can definitely put you through the ringer on these things. But yeah, that's my list, guys. I just wanted to share with you. I'm realizing that, you know, some of the content that I have is going to be for those diehards, and some of the content that I have, I want to try to reach new viewers on a little bit, trying to mix things up a little bit, trying to do more lists because it seems like everybody likes lists. I'm going to try to include a couple of these, maybe 1 or 2 a week every now and then, whenever I'm feeling like it, because I have a massive collection of movies that I could tell you tons of films to suggest. Hopefully I can scratch that itch for just about all of you. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please hit the like and the subscribe button if you haven't before, and also hit that little notification bell to let you know when I have a new video out, because YouTube has been burying my algorithm. So if you like this video, share it with someone that you think will enjoy it too. But thanks for coming by, and as always, long live the void.